So Putin follows Schwarzenegger because they have a lot of things in common. For instance, their dads didn't think that they were their kids. This is, a fun Arnold Schwarzenegger psychological background fun fact. His dad didn't believe that Arnold was his son. And his dad was very abusive towards him. So to get self-worth, he, got immersed in the most narcissistic, quote, sport that there can be, and that's bodybuilding. And so Arnold tells a story about a world-famous Russian weightlifter, not a bodybuilder, a weightlifter.
That Arnold idolized as a kid.
Idolized him. And named Vasilov. And when he was 14, there was a world weightlifting championship in Austria, and someone, not his dad, took him to go see the guy and then meet him backstage. I don't want to play the entire thing. Here's Arnold.
I know that your government has told you that this is a war to denazify Ukraine. Denazify Ukraine. This is not true. Ukraine is a country with a Jewish president, I might add, whose father's 3 brothers were all murdered by the Nazis.
Probably your dad.
You see?
Yeah, I think if they see it might be effective. The main thing that he did was he came clean about, look, my dad was in the Wehrmacht. My dad was wounded in Leningrad because, and that's kind of the connection with Putin. Putin is from Leningrad. His dad was a submariner in World War II, but Putin grew up in an absolute hellscape because the siege of Leningrad was over 700 days. They wind up eating like severed limbs from the wounded. I mean, really, for real, it was that dire as the Germans surrounded the Leningrad, including Gefreiter Schwarzenegger, little Private Schwarzenegger. As people, and then they shelled Leningrad for 700 something days, and if people lost limbs, I mean, really, there's stories about this. Obviously there are no dogs or cats left. Even the rats got out and all that, but just an absolute hellscape in Leningrad during World War II. And his dad was part of that. And so connecting with the Russians, saying, listen, my hero growing up was your world famous weightlifter, because that weightlifter wound up getting into politics in Russia, after the fall of the Soviet Union and the whole thing. But Schwarzenegger talks about how he, as a 14-year-old Austrian, he had a poster of the guy in his room, and his dad told him to take it down, and he refused, and he got in a fight with his dad. So that's I agree. I mean, Bono can write a poem and Nancy Pelosi can write it, but, Schwarzenegger talking to the Russian people, about this. And he was really, when he was governor of California, they didn't care how ineffective he was. It was just, hey, look at this foreigner who came to America and, rose to be the governor of the largest state there and the whole thing. So he has a weird affinity with the Russian people. Then, hello, he was Detective Danko in Red Heat.
Which I haven't seen.
You've not seen Red Heat?
I keep on touting myself as a cinephile, and I haven't seen all these movies that you reference.
He was Detective Danko.
So is he pro-Russian or anti-Russian in that movie?
Oh, he's a commie. He's a red. But he has to come to Chicago to find the murderer. And so the running joke in the line is whenever he introduces it, because it's Jim Belushi is a Chicago cop. That is the wacky buddy movie about the, grizzled Chicago homicide detective and the Soviet detective. And whenever he introduces himself, he goes, Danko. And guess what Jim Belushi says every time? You're welcome. So he makes fun of his name. But so I got to say, as a flashback to the 80s, it was the first movie filmed actually in Moscow on Red Square was Red Heat. And also, by the way, Red Heat, hugely popular in Russia. And why? Because the Soviet detective is the biggest guy. He's the most Russian guy of all time. And he's the hero. He's the co-hero in the movie. And he goes to America and he teaches Americans how to be a policeman and all that. They love that movie. Love it. And for most Americans, it's kind of an afterthought. For most so-called film buffs, they haven't even seen it.
Who told you you can eat my cookies? No! Put that cookie down! Now!
That's the penultimate scene in Red Heat. Be back in just a second. The president on a phone call with President Xi of China, and guess who they're talking? Vladimir's ears must be burning because they're talking about him. Dividing up the carcass of what is soon to be formerly Russia. We'll get to that and an update on what's going on in Ukraine. And more, it is AM 770 KTTH, a former world, there's like Mr. Universe and Mr. whatever, Schwarzenegger, movie star, failed governor, failed two-term governor. He did get reelected, to be fair, is being hailed around the world with his inspiring message to the Russian people and specifically Russian soldiers to kill their battalion commanders and defect to the Ukrainians. No, he didn't do that. But he invoked his Nazi father, who was a soldier in the German army. And here's a little bit of his 9.5 minute appeal to Russian soldiers currently finding themselves in Ukraine fighting Nazis or whatever.
I know that your government has told you that this is a war to denazify Ukraine. Denazify Ukraine. This is not true. Ukraine is a country with a Jewish president, I might add, whose father's 3 brothers were all murdered by the Nazis. You see, Ukraine did not start this war. Neither did nationalists or Nazis. Those in power in the Kremlin started this war.
And he goes on talking about the mental abuse, or rather the scars of war that his father wore for the rest of his life, and in many cases took it out on Arnold and the whole thing. So,
and there are countless tragedies and horror.
Well, so Arnold Schwarzenegger has a couple unique bits of credibility with your average 18-year-old Russian male in the Red Army, and it's that. He's obviously one of the most popular movie stars there of all time, same as here. His dad was a soldier in Russia, except his dad was part of the army that invaded. And no, not Napoleon's. It was this Herr Hitler. And when he wisely chose to invade Russia in the summer of 1941, and Arnold's dad wound up getting wounded at this horrendous siege of Leningrad, where the Germans were besieging Leningrad. And then his final bit of credibility is he's one of only 22 people that Vladimir Putin follows on Twitter. For real. By the way, I just retweeted a story about natural gas from the South China Morning Post, because the Chinese are raising alarm bells about what's going on, because it turns out the Chinese love eating, just like we do. They find it crucial. And the other reason I retweeted the story, if you click on it, is because of the author's name. And it's not a dish at a restaurant, and it's not my club name. But anyway, click on that story at Dark Secret Place. Click on the story. Like I said, I only retweeted it so that you read the author's name out loud. Because if I do, I get suspended, and I'm the bad guy. All right, so Schwarzenegger is making worldwide headlines because he did a 9 minute 16 second speech to the Russian soldiers in the Ukraine. And here's a we'll dip into the start, the middle about his dad, and then the end about Putin being a bad guy.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for sharing your time with me. I'm sending this message through various different channels to reach my dear Russian friends and the Russian soldiers serving in Ukraine. I'm speaking to you today because there are things that are going on in the world that are being kept from you.
Do you think there's one 18-year-old that would sit through a 9-minute video? I mean, American or Russian?
That's a good question. It was even hard for me to sit through a little bit, but it was a wonderful video. But yes, our attention spans are about 20 seconds.
I think,
in this generation.
Mistake one, and I'm a guy that sits through, all of Lawrence of Arabia. This is the TikTok generation in T-72s, and they know him and the whole thing. But he is right about various channels that he's going to get it into the Russia because Putin, the Russians in the 90s didn't do what the Chinese did. The Chinese said, we welcome your internet and all of its many knowledges. However, we need one valve that we can turn off, and we'll call it the Great Firewall of China. And the internet said, money, 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 money. How high? How much? Okay. The Russians never did that. this will get in to Russia, probably getting bounced around right now, but will they get past the first minute? Terrible things that you should know about. So what he does is he sets up that, hey, you're all good guys, and when I was a kid, I admired a Russian weightlifter named, let me get to that. A very good friend of mine invited me to come to Vienna and to watch the World Weightlifting Championships. I was in the audience when Yuri Petrovich Vlasov won the World Championship title, becoming the first human being to lift 200 kilograms over his head. That's like 18 gallons. And so the deal is Vlasov is a national hero in Russia. Yeah, it was, the early 60s, but he became an elder statesman for Russian sport. And he was a Russian who was the best in the world. And to the Russians, that's huge. To the rest of the world, if you say, hey, how about that Walter Payton? There'll never be another one of him. They'll be like, right. He was a forward for Chelsea, right? No, around the world, they know Vlasov. So he's a world famous Russian. So it's like, okay, Tolstoy, Gagarin, Vlasov, Tretiak, they were the best at what they did and they're world famous. So when he drops that reference, it's absolutely huge. So he's connecting with these guys. The point of his story is that he met him and it was inspired by him. So he went home and
he had a picture taken with him. And he put it on his wall, and his dad told him to take it down.
And to put his photo above my bed to inspire me when I started lifting weights. My father told me.
Not doing it for weight. By the way, he was a bodybuilder, not a weightlifter. Vlasov was a weightlifter. But
come on, distinction without a difference. Come on.
Real.
To take down that picture and to find a German and Austrian hero. He got really angry, and we argued back and forth. He didn't like Russians because of his experience in the Second World War. Well, whose fault was that? Yeah, why don't you like a German or Austrian hero, little Arnold, like this failed painter from Vienna?
But this is so smart by Schwarzenegger. It makes me feel like he's listened to a lot of preachers in his day because he's making it personal. He's telling a story from his own life. He's making it relational. And so he brings Russian people in with an emotional anecdote.
Well, my point here is to skip ahead. And not,
yeah.
So he fast forwards to when he filmed Red Heat in Moscow, which was the first film, 1988, filmed, physically in Moscow. Remember, Russia hadn't collapsed yet. And so he got to meet his great hero.
Doing the filming of Red Heat, which was the first American movie allowed to film in Red Square. Now, he and I spent the whole day together. He was so thoughtful, so kind, and so smart, and, of course, very giving. He gave me this beautiful blue coffee cup.
He holds up the beautiful blue coffee cup. So he's laying out his cred. You have it. That's like, so there I was, and Michael Jordan taught me how to shoot threes. And I went back to Mongolia, and, for years and years. So he's got the credibility. So he brings it home. He has a call to action for Russian soldiers not involving assassinating their battalion commanders. So we'll get that for you as we wrap this up, because one cable show played this thing uncut for the entire 9 minutes, and I just wondered what did they think they were doing. Then I thought they kind of oversold it, but anyway,
it's gone super viral. It's got over 1 million likes on Twitter, which is almost unheard of within 24 hours. Here's his appeal to Russian troops. Should we play it now?
No, we're going to take a break.
We'll do it on the
we'll wrap it up because this is we're on the whack. We're going to give it to Marsha. It's AM 770 KTTH here. Let's get back to Arnold. And by the way, here's the environment that the Russian soldiers are living in right now. Without access to their phones, they're having to bounce rumors off each other and things like that, rumors of what is going on. And there's never any hopeful rumors when you're in that position, because the reality, by the way, is horrendous. There's an entire unit from 8 time zones to the east, from Vladivostok on the Pacific coast of Russia, because the Russian military drafts regionally. They're not going to use a plane ticket to fly to Moscow. Anyway, this unit was wiped out on March 2nd and 3rd. because they were tactically idiotic, and they didn't know that they were facing people who, even though they didn't have tanks, they had a shoulder-fired missile that was going to wipe out tank after tank after tank. And their mommies haven't heard from them. They had their phones. They talked to their mommies on February 21st and 22nd, 23rd. All of a sudden, on the Russian Facebook, VK, for contact, they started sharing the fact that the phone call stopped. By March 3rd, the phone call stopped. And they got, so-and-so Mrs. Yevgenovich down the street got a call from her boy, and he had a horrible story to tell. Well, the Russians are about to shut down their own social media because of this, because all these sons were killed in a 24-hour period in this one town. and even worse, because they died horribly in tanks. Local feral dogs went into the destroyed vehicles and began pulling the bodies of their 18-year-old sons out, between the well-done ones and the rare. This really happened. This is really how armored warfare works. It's horrible. And they're getting that. So they shut that down. So anyway, Schwarzenegger now, in his address to Russian soldiers, he boils down the number one bitch for a soldier, and it's you're being lied to. Anyway, let me give it to Marshawn.
The Russian government has lied not only to the citizens, but to its soldiers. Some of the soldiers were told they were going to fight Nazis. Some were told that the Ukrainian people would greet them like heroes. And some were told that they were simply going on exercise. They didn't even know that they were going into war. And some were told that they were there to protect ethnic Russians in Ukraine. None of this is true. The fact is that Russian soldiers have faced fierce resistance from the Ukrainians who want to protect their families and their country. When I see babies being pulled out of ruins, I think that I'm watching a documentary about the horrors of the Second World War, not the news of the day. And let me tell you, when my father arrived in Leningrad, he was all pumped up on the lies of his government.
Pumped up?
I just got the reference.
He didn't wink or anything. That's
right.
why I was really surprised. It's like I thought he was going to make a bumped up, but anyway.
When he left Leningrad, he was broken, physically and mentally. He lived the rest of his life in pain. Pain from a broken back, pain from the shrapnel that always reminded him of these terrible years, and pain from the guilt that he felt. To the Russian soldiers listening to this broadcast, you already know much of the truth that I've been speaking. You have seen it with your own eyes. I don't want you to be broken like my father.
Now, this is where I think that his appeal is to Russian soldiers, and I agree with you. I think it's good if they get it, if they're able to access it, and then the ultimate, buried in the middle of this is the ultimate hypocrisy of the entire thing that you guys have been sent on, and your buddy from down the street was dragged out of his arm is being eaten by a dog. Because some Ukrainian shot a British missile at his mighty tank and the whole thing. And here's the central hypocrisy.
I know that your government has told you that this is a war to denazify Ukraine. Denazify Ukraine? This is not true. Ukraine is a country with a Jewish president, I might add, whose father's 3 brothers were all murdered by the Nazis. You see? Ukraine did not start this war. Neither did nationalists or Nazis. Those in power in the Kremlin started this war.
And Zelensky is funny in Russian. The Russians know him. Russian boys know. The metaphor, not metaphor, the comparison, the analogy would be, imagine Jim Carrey went back to Canada and was elected prime minister. And America, and dictator for life Kamala Harris said the evil Canadians are Nazis. We have to go in there. The average American 18, 19-year-old, 20-year-old soldier or Marine, they would know that Jim Carrey was in Dumb and Dumber. They know he's not a Nazi. They know he talks with his butt in Ace Ventura.
It's a great point. And someone once said, people don't care what you know until they know that you care. The first 3 minutes of the video, he talks about his love for Russia and says, here's how you know why I love the Russian people. The next 3 minutes, he lays out logic, facts, and the truth. And then the last 3 minutes of the video, he ends by saying, my new heroes are the Russians protesting in the street of Moscow. I really think it's a masterclass by Schwarzenegger here, though it is long for our short attention spans for Zillennials and the like.
And also it is multimedia as he's talking when he towards the end when he's talking about arrests and protests and all that. They're showing Russian police. It was that famous video of the 86-year-old survivor of the Leningrad siege. And this old woman with a poster, taking her away, and that whole thing. But anyway, if it works, it works. I hope it does. Like I say, I don't know that Arnold knows this. I mean, I think everyone knows Zelensky's Jewish, and so it's silly calling him a Nazi. But yeah, the soldiers know him. His videos are viral in Russia because they're funny, and also because he does a dead-on Putin impression. And it's like Will Ferrell doing Trump, or someone doing Biden or something. It's viral. They knew who he was, but it's good if it gets to him. I hope it does have an effect. But at this point on day 23. Things are going so badly that he may have just, toppled it over.
And a video like this might be difficult to penetrate the media blackout that's going on in Russia right now, where almost nothing from the Western world seems to be getting through.
Yeah, and the only thing going for it is the fact that they kind of have bigger fish to fry. And the fact that Schwarzenegger didn't get personal about Putin, he said, your leader, you can do the right thing and all that. He should have said, like me, your father didn't even think he was your real father. And so unlike me, who got huge and became the best in the world at what I did, all you did was play judo or practice judo and get rejected by girls. And so now that you're powerful, you have mistresses all over, but you can't actually earn and keep the love of a woman. I guess Arnold Schwarzenegger wouldn't really have the right to say that. But so anyway. Well, there. Look at that. We gave it a Marshawn, and I would have ended with. I would have said, if you guys don't kill your battalion commanders and surrender to the Ukrainians, I'm breaking out my secret weapon.
I'd like to take out those tanks.
There we go. All right. Have a good weekend, everybody. Greg, have a